So I'm going to show you how to make a delicious traditional Mexican style shortbread cookie. My family makes these probably several times a year, especially for the holidays. Here's how I do it. To start, I'm working with 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. It measured or weighed about 390 grams of flour. I'm also going to be adding a half teaspoon of ground cinnamon. If you have the Mexican cinnamon sticks, you can grind it yourself, but I already have it. Okay, so a half teaspoon going into the flour. I'm also adding a 1/4 teaspoon of ground anise seeds. And for those of you that don't know what that is, this is what it looks like whole. I like to boil this for tea, but I'm using the ground version. I'll say that's optional. Now I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to give all of that a really good mix. Traditionally, when my family and I make this, we use manteca or pork lard. But my pork lard or manteca went rancid. It expired, so I had to pivot, and now I'm going to be using shortening. This is butter flavored shortening, but regular works. And what I'm going to do is cream this with the sugar and vanilla. But first, I'm going to kind of mash this with my fork. It is softened. And like I said, manteca or pork lard is the traditional ingredient. If I had that, I would use that. And now I'm going to add 3/4 cup of sugar into 8 ounces or half a pound of the shortening with 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I'm going to continue with my fork first. I'm going to mash all the sugar, and then once the sugar is combined, I'm going to whisk and cream the ingredients together. So you probably noticed the only liquid going in this recipe is the vanilla extract. Doing this will yield a melt-in-your-mouth, crumbly shortbread cookie. You can add egg or liquid to this recipe to make like a cookie dough, but it just changes the texture. So what I'm doing is going to scrape all of this shortening into the flour and cut it into the flour. You don't want to overwork the dough, but you do want to combine everything well, and it is going to be a crumbly, soft texture. And once it's all combined, you'll see it's very crumbly, but once you press it together, it comes together. This is a very delicate cookie, and it is a very delicate dough to work with. And I'll show you how you kind of press it together and cut out shapes. So what I'm going to do is just take a handful and press it together, kind of like a dough ball. And now on a non-stick surface, I'm working with a sill pad. Here I'm just going to kind of press and use my rolling pin to create an even flat surface. If I had to guess, the thickness that I'm making these cookies would be like 1/3 inch. It's not quite 1/4 inch, and it's not a 1/2 inch. So I would say 1/3 inch if you're trying to be exact. So you notice how I'm just kind of rolling it and kind of patting it. That's kind of how you have to work with this dough. It's very crumbly. So I'm going to use this little flower cookie cutter. You could also use the circle end, but I'm going to do little flowers. Sometimes if I don't have a cookie cutter, I actually just get a butter knife and I cut it into like diamond shapes or squares. It all works. So once all of these are cut or pressed out, it's a very delicate dough, so you kind of want to just be gentle with it, but it should lift up just like this. And it's this perfect little shaped cookie. And you repeat the process and place it on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. So for the first batch, I got 42 cookies. In all, this recipe will yield probably around 70-75 small cookies. Okay, so while they're baking at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes, I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar onto a pie plate and 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and this is going to be the dredge that I coat the warm cookies with. And I'm just going to give this a mix and get rid of all of those lumps. Sometimes I like to add a pinch of salt, just a tiny pinch of salt. I probably will do that into the sugar cinnamon dredge. It just sort of elevates the flavor. It adds something a little extra. When my family and I get together for the holiday, we make hundreds of these cookies. We just sit around the table and kind of like quadruple this recipe. And it's so nice to have everybody take just a little box of cookies home after we get together. Okay, so after 15 minutes in a 350 degree oven, they are ready. And they're not going to get super golden deep brown color, just a little tinge. And these are very hot, so I'm going to let these set for about 5 minutes before I pull them off the baking sheet. Now I'm just going to carefully take the warm cookie and put it right into the cinnamon sugar dredge and coat it lightly. And that's it. These are so addictive, and before you know it, you've eaten like 10 of these. They are so good. You definitely can make these bigger. Sometimes I like to do heart-shaped ones. They're so good. So I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it. And thanks for watching.